Joan Crawford is remembered as one of Hollywood's Iron Queens. Proud, cold, and intimidating to men. Yet behind that facade lay a shocking truth. Crawford loved women, and they were all A-list stars. Before her death, Crawford allegedly revealed the names of 10 women she had dated, from the sex symbol of the silver screen to Brodney's defiant man in a dress, and even the woman dubbed the First Lady of MGM. Which stars truly passed through Joan Crawford's life, and why did she keep this list hidden for decades? Joan Crawford's life was one of the most dramatic tragedies of Hollywood's golden era. She was born into poverty, abandoned by her father, and abused by her stepfather. That brutal childhood forged a Crawford obsessed with discipline, power, and the willingness to use any tactic, even playing dirty, to seize roles. When she signed with MGM, Crawford quickly ascended to stardom, but simultaneously became the sworn rival of many actresses. She was notorious for her diva demands and her determination to always be the brightest star in the room. Crawford also suffered from obsessive-compulsive disorder. She managed her image like a military campaign, never appearing without makeup, always dressed lavishly, even inside her own home. Christina Crawford, her adopted daughter, described in her memoir, Mommy Dearest, 1978, the hellish days of being forced to clean in the middle of the night and live under the crushing weight of her mother's obsession with perfection. But even these scandals were not the most shocking part of Joan Crawford's life. Hollywood has long tried to bury a secret. Crawford had numerous affairs with A-list actresses, and the very first name on that list is enough to leave you stunned. An icon of the century. 1. Marilyn Monroe. Joan was insane. She wanted me to call her mother all night. To the public, Monroe was forever a sex symbol. But in the 1950s, the bombshell blonde became Crawford's prey in a twisted game of power. Their connection began at a lavish party. That night, Joan Crawford arrived like a queen, a black gown hugging her body, cold eyes, her hand resting lightly on a gentleman's arm. Monroe, on the other hand, sat alone in a corner, weary eyes and lips pressed to a glass of wine after days of depression. Crawford made the first move. She leaned in close, her breath against Marilyn's ear. "You know, every man here only wants to turn you into an ornament." The words were a spark to Marilyn's hollow heart. Their eyes locked, a sly smile flickered, and within minutes, a limousine whisked them away into the night. What followed was a storm, whiskey candlelight giggles turning into gasps, bodies colliding with violent passion. Crawford led like a tyrant. Monroe, innocent yet craving, surrendered, consumed entirely. A servant later recalled, "All night I heard laughter mixed with moans, the crash of furniture. When I entered in the morning, it looked like the aftermath of a hurricane. Rumpled sheets, shattered glasses on the floor. Marilyn's red silk dress tossed carelessly on the sofa. Proof of a battlefield." Monroe herself later confessed to close friends Joan was insane. "She wanted me to call her mother all night. I've never seen anyone so hungry for control." After that night, Marilyn avoided Crawford. Whenever they crossed paths, Monroe would look away. Crawford, however, was unfazed. She told colleagues, "She's too weak. A woman like that will never last long in this town." Journalists caught wind of the scandal, but reports were silenced. Allegedly bought off with hundreds of thousands of dollars from Crawford herself. For Monroe, the scar remained. She felt used, reduced to a pawn in Crawford's power games. But this was only the beginning. Soon after, Crawford would entangle herself with yet another formidable woman. 2. Katharine Hepburn. The power play conversation and a stolen kiss backstage. Katharine Hepburn was unlike any other star of her time. While Hollywood forced women into skirts, Hepburn flaunted trousers and exuded a half-masculine dominance. She was dubbed the man in a dress, not just for her fashion, but for her aura of authority and rumors of her fluid love life. In 1947, backstage at a Broadway performance, Joan Crawford arrived with her wealthy entourage. She strode in with haughty pride, flaunting her relevance. Hepburn, perched on a dressing table, eyed her sharply. Without greeting, she fired, "You know, Joan, that tight dress doesn't make you stronger." Crawford provoked laughed instead of lashing out. Their exchange turned into a duel of barbed words. Hepburn snarled, "Take off that ugly dress and put on some pants." Crawford shot back, "Why don't you burn those damn trousers and finally wear a gown? Dear sir, in a dress." The tension climaxed when Crawford entered Hepburn's private dressing room. The door shut. Hepburn approached, eyes locked, and suddenly kissed Crawford on the cheek. But it lingered slow and defiant, catching Crawford off guard. Crawford responded. She grabbed Hepburn's neck, pressed their faces together, leaving a lipstick stain. Later, Hepburn admitted she didn't know why it happened. Crawford confessed, "Katharine was so fierce I couldn't control it." And yes, she kissed like a pro. Whispers of the collision between Crawford and Hepburn spread, and insiders claimed it wasn't the last. The two allegedly spent a fevered night together before partying as strangers the next morning, but this clash with Hepburn was only a prelude. Crawford would soon enter an even more explosive affair. 3. Bette Davis, the most dramatic feud in Hollywood history. Joan Crawford and Bette Davis. Two eternal icons are remembered for their legendary feud, but few know that their hatred was born from a buried romance. In 1933, Davis was still a newcomer at Warner Brothers while Crawford was already A-list. At a party, Davis approached Crawford with a drink. They clicked, and within weeks, they began secret rendezvous at Crawford's West Hollywood apartment. But the affair shattered when Franco Tone entered. Davis loved him madly, but Tone married Crawford in 1935. For Davis, it was devastating, betrayed by a man and by the very woman she'd shared a bed with. Love turned into loathing. Davis publicly swore, "I will hate Joan Crawford until my last breath." By the late 1940s, Hollywood buzzed about a drunken brawl at a party. Crawford and Davis, first kissing wildly, then clawing at each other's hair, all for the attention of a young director. A witness gasped, "I couldn't tell if they were making love or war." The climax came in 1962 when they starred together in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. On screen, audiences saw two women at war. Off screen, the hatred was real. A crew member said no one had to yell, "Action." They were already devouring each other. And yet, B. Davis was not Crawford's most shocking affair. Behind the mask of fame, Crawford dared to pursue another woman, one so powerful that even MGM bowed before her. 4. Norma Shearer. The love affair with the First Lady of MGM, Norma Shearer, and Joan Crawford are often remembered as sworn enemies. On-screen, they battled for roles and the spotlight. Off-screen, they competed for status and social power. But what audiences never knew was that beneath that mask of rivalry lay a dark secret, a clandestine affair born from jealousy itself. At the time, Shearer was the First Lady of MGM, wife of movie mogul Irving Thalberg. She was the picture of elegance and refinement. Crawford, by contrast, was fiery, rising fast, and unafraid to break rules. Behind the scenes, however, the story was far different. One MGM employee swore he once saw Shearer rushing out of Crawford's dressing room, fur coat pulled tight around her shoulders, face flushed, lipstick smudged. Moments later, Crawford stepped out, cigarette dangling between her fingers. Rumors exploded. Had their rivalry turned into forbidden pleasure? A lighting technician recalled overhearing strange noises during a film shoot. When a door accidentally swung open, he glimpsed Crawford pressing Shearer against a dressing table. Even at glittering Beverly Hills parties, the two women often sat together with a provocative air. But when the guests left, they disappeared together. For Crawford, possessing the First Lady of MGM was more than desire. It was a secret act of revenge against the studio system that had once belittled her. For Shearer, Crawford was a doorway into a dangerous freedom she had never dared to explore. An unpublished letter, allegedly from Shearer to a confidant, read, "Joan makes me sick, and yet I cannot stay away." The affair burned hot, reckless, but short. After Irving Thalberg's death, Shearer clung to Crawford even more until their bond collapsed 2 years later. And soon after, Crawford plunged into yet another affair, this one chaotic and violent, a battleground where love and hatred collided. 5. Ava Gardner, The Violent Voyage. Ava Gardner was the goddess of desire, capable of bringing men to their knees with a glance. From Frank Sinatra to European royalty. But the affair that haunted her wasn't with a man. It was the wild voyage she shared with Joan Crawford. It began in Rome in 1952. Crawford was vacationing after a string of films. Gardner had just staggered out of her stormy days with Sinatra. At a nobleman's party, Crawford spotted Gardner, black waves of hair, satin dress, clinging tight, a smile that sent the room spinning. While men scrambled to pull out chairs, Crawford merely observed. When the party ended, Gardner surprised her with a whisper, "Do you want to come with me?" A crewman aboard the yacht that night swore the tide wasn't the only thing crashing. He recalled heavy footsteps, then an eerie silence. Moments later came Gardner's guttural laugh mixed with Crawford's icy snarl. "You think you can leave the bed now, Ava?" The next morning, the cabin looked like a war zone. Liquor stains on wooden walls, shattered glass everywhere,